Hello, runners, and welcome to HSS Coaches Chat. I am Coach Annick with the New York Road Runners, and we have a very special guest today. It is Hospital for Special Surgery physical therapist Cathy Wysin. Welcome to the show, Cathy.
Hi, thanks for having me today.
Yeah, we are so thrilled because we are only 11 days out from the TCS New York City Marathon, and you might think that a physical therapist is something you access in the middle of your training season, but your expertise right before the race is so clutch because our athletes are in their taper period. And Cathy, you also are a multi-time New York City marathoner. You've also run Chicago, and you just recently ran London.
Sure did. Still living the high from London. Sure, it's about 3 weeks ago.
And you said it went well, yes?
It did go well. I mean, definitely a little undertrained, but as I think a lot of people were that were there with me, but it's just an absolute amazing experience that I hope to get back there again someday.
I love it. I love it. So you really are the perfect expert for us today, both as a marathoner and a physical therapist. And so runners, the way this is going to work today is we are going to talk about what you should do between now and race day. So you can be your best on race day. And then we're also going to talk about how to clear some of those race day hurdles that you might experience when running the 26.2-mile distance. But before we hop into it, runners, don't forget that this is your chat. And so in the comment section, go ahead and give us shout outs, questions for myself, questions for Cathy. There's a lot of expertise right here with Cathy on the show, and we want you to get your answers. So don't hesitate to throw questions in the chat. But Cathy, let's get right into it. We're in the taper period, which is when folks are starting to reduce their mileage, both the intensity of the running and the quantity of the running. So they're at their best for race day. But what are folks experiencing physically and mentally during this time? What are the different things you've seen happen?
Yeah, I think mentally there may be some anxiety, some nerves. Maybe you're thinking you haven't trained enough. If this is your first time marathon, you really have no benchmark to what to expect on race day. So I think the nerves can set in a little bit. And I always say that, feeling nervous is a good thing. It means that this race and this marathon really do mean something to you. And I think for many people, you've put in the legwork over the past couple months. I think just speaking in general, for any runner, this has been a really challenging year. This may be your first marathon back or your first big race back. So you may be a little bit nervous about what to expect. You may be someone like me who felt very undertrained going into, London for me. And that's okay. This is the time, I think, as Coach Annick said, you're tapering. Don't feel like you have to go out there and, jump and add all these extra miles in there. Stay true to the taper, trust your training. And it's okay to be nervous. But, know that you've put the legwork in, you will get there. And, if you are a little bit concerned about being undertrained, I always say it's better to be undertrained and get to the start line healthy than try to tack in a ton of extra miles during this taper period. So okay to be nervous. You're great.
It's okay to be nervous. I'm so curious. How did you handle your race? You were running marathon. You're an experienced marathoner, but you find yourself about to head into London, and you're feeling a little undertrained. How did you clamp down on those nerves and actually execute on race day?
Yeah. So my longest run going into London was only 15 miles. So I pretty well knew that I was probably going to hit the wall pretty early in the race, and that was okay. My training was not really to what it should be, just, with everything going on right now. And I also knew that it was not wise to, increase the mileage too quickly, because bottom line, I wanted to get to the start line healthy. So for me, it was really setting realistic goals for London, knowing that there was going to be a lot of walking in there, coming to terms with, even though it was a flat, faster course, there was probably not going to be a PR in the making. And it was just going out, enjoying the experience and finishing. So I think if undertraining is something you're a little bit concerned about, just, have some realistic goals set for yourself on race day. And I think that's key for any runner that may be concerned about that. And enjoy the day. New York is a great race. You're going to love every minute of it. So just have realistic goals based on what you did for training, and just be proud of the fact that you're getting to the start line and getting to run in 11 days, I think, is key.
I love this. I love this. It's a reframing. And it's such a smart reframing because it protects you. That injury prevention is really important, right? You're not going to go run a 22 miler after a 15 miler. So you're building mileage incrementally and then adjusting goals on the back end. So you're able to put those walk breaks in and you're setting yourself up for smart success. I love it. I think it's such a brilliant thing that you were able to set yourself up for success on race day. We know during this time, people have, they get really used to running miles, feeling fatigued, recovering, doing a lot more miles. And then all of a sudden you take away the mileage quantity and you have, around 2 weeks of reduced volume and people start to get weird aches and pains. They start to feel discomfort, and that discomfort can sometimes lead to like a feeling of panic because their body has a lot of sensation going on. How do you describe the sort of sensation that runners feel during the taper period?
Yeah, I think a lot of you are probably sore. Your body may be fatigued. You've been putting, some pretty heavy miles and heavy high mileage weeks leading up to this, and now you're cutting back. So there probably is a little bit of fatigue. You probably are having some muscle soreness, and that's to be expected. I think there's a couple key things I would look out for. If you're tapering back and factoring in some rest days and that soreness isn't getting better with rest or time off your feet, that could be a little bit of a red flag. If you're having pain with just walking or going up and down the stairs, or I think the big thing for me is you're limping just with walking and moving around, that may be a little bit more concerning. If anything, I think, to be a little sore at this phase is key. It is okay to rest. It is okay to scale back. The one thing I would definitely caution against is not trying to run through this discomfort. Give your body, the time to rest. And if you have to cut out a couple of those shorter weekday runs just to get the time off your feet, that's okay. I think this is a phase where more is not necessarily better. And in general, if you are really sore, running more miles is not going to make it better. It's okay to rest, get some ice on there, take it easy.
Yeah, there's no cramming. You alluded to this in the first question. There's no like secret. This is not a test. The marathon is not a test,
No.
and you can't stay up all night cramming miles before. You really have to let your body synthesize all the excellent running you've done, or you do risk being overtrained. But I think also in there you do this great caution, which is like, yes, there's normal fatigue, and then there's I'm having mobility issues, I'm having consistent, continuous pain, and that's when you need to actually partner with your primary care physician or your physical therapist and say what's happening here. But I love how you break that down. What should a runner be doing right now to prepare their body for race day? So we talked about no cramming of miles. They shouldn't be trying to sneak in extra workouts, but what should they be doing to have an optimum race day performance?
So I think there's a couple things I would keep in mind. Rest is going to be important, trying to get a good night's sleep. Typically the night before race day, you're probably not going to get a lot of sleep, especially if those nerves and that anxiety is kicking in, and that's okay. It's really, the days and week leading up to race day where you should be trying to get a good night's rest, because chances are the night before you're not going to sleep well, and that's normal. Also trying to eat a well-balanced diet. I would probably avoid foods that are new at this point. I think it's the old saying, nothing new on race day. Well, probably nothing new leading up to race day. Stick with foods foods that you've been training with, a well-balanced meal. And I think as you get a little bit closer to race day, I think about 2 to 3 days out, trying to avoid alcohol, excessive caffeine. They can dehydrate you. And, not only drinking water and fluids on race day, but making sure that you're drinking water and fluids leading up to race day so that you can stay hydrated. So I think those are a couple key things I would work in right now and start doing.
And I also love that you talk about sleep. The night before the race is almost always a loss, both in terms of having to get up early to get to Staten Island, but just anxiety and nerves. And, we always say focus on the night before. So get like a really good night's sleep on Friday and know that Saturday night, you're probably going to be anxious. And so are 30,000 other people. Yep. And so it's just about really staying relaxed as you can, and then not fighting it when inevitably you become a little anxious before the race and you've got to get to Staten Island and get up early and all that stuff. Well, Cathy, let's hop on over to some questions that I have coming your way. And runners, don't forget that if you want to have your question answered by Cathy, our physical therapist from the Hospital for Special Surgery here, this is a perfect time to ask your question. But we have one from Yasi, who says, what is the best way in the last week to keep your body active? They add, because some runners take too much rest and some take too little rest. What would you recommend? What is
Mm.
that sweet spot?
That sweet spot, I would think, probably looking at a long run next Sunday, probably no more than about 8 to 10 miles. And this may vary based on, how experienced of a marathoner are. You can still go out and do that long run, but a little bit less. You're probably during the week, maybe 2, 3 times a week, maybe around 3-ish, 4 miles, maybe some cross training. It's tapering back that pounding and that time on your feet. So maybe you go for some walks instead of running. So it's okay to keep moving, but, cutting that long run back, cutting back that mileage of those weekday runs. Maybe instead of a weekday run, you do a little cross training, you get on the elliptical, you get on the bike, maybe you swim, something just a little bit different. I'd probably stay pretty consistent with my foam rolling, especially after runs. And, for cross training, maybe you mix in a walk instead of a run. So those are some other ways to at least keep you active, keep that aerobic capacity, at its maximum strength, but lessening the actual pounding and time on your feet.
Awesome. Yeah, this question from Nick sort of dovetails right into that.
Mhm.
And Nick says, I was told it's a bad idea to drop down too much during the 2 week taper period. To keep light workouts so you don't stiffen up. Also, as we accept that the time it takes for training to have an impact, is it true that we are at the point where we really can't impact our race beyond staying loose to keep moving while reducing fatigue? So the question here is that we are now in this 2 week window, and Nick is asking, is it true that you can't improve your running during this time? And I'd love your take, Cathy, and I've sort of got my own take on this.
Um, I mean, on a personal side note, I am a true believer of the taper. You've probably been putting some heavy miles in there, and you're most likely going to run at a higher effort, I think, on marathon day than you are on training days. And I think this is going to be true. Adrenaline's going to be pumping. You're probably, hopefully not going out by gangbusters, but it's probably going to be a little bit of a harder effort, I think, on marathon day than training day. So I think it is important to cut back so you have some gas in the tank, to really run your best race. So I think if you've put in the pretty consistent 4, maybe 5 months of training, you've got the underlying base training there. But I think it is going to be crucial to cut back a little bit to lead up to race day so that you really can give your best effort. I'll be honest, and me personally, in all the marathons I run, if I had done, an 18 or 20 mile long run the week before a marathon, I don't think I'd be at my full capacity. And that's for me at a personal level. So I think there, is some basis for cutting back so you really can be at, optimal performance on race day and giving, making those legs or allowing those legs to be fresh. So that's kind of my personal opinion there on that.
Yeah, I will absolutely echo that from my coaching standpoint here. In this 2 week period, there is not a lot that you can do to strengthen your performance, right? Your body needs time to synthesize its hard efforts, and then it needs to have a recovery period. So you can actually, from a physiological perspective, you can come up to as close to 100% as you can to execute on race day. So you do want to stay active. We're not saying take 2 weeks off and go to, the Bahamas. We're saying do light exercises, go for a slightly longer run if you need to. Definitely keep that heart rate moving, keep your legs turning over. Don't go cold turkey on us, but we're saying really try and reduce the volume and the intensity. So you should feel like you have more and more in the tank on race day. So I absolutely echo that, Cathy. I think it's so important for runners to pull back. And in this 2 week period, there's not a lot you can do. We say it's like a phrase we say, the hay is in the barn. You've like harvested all the hay. There's not a lot you can do to harvest any more hay or any more efforts, but there's a lot you can do to hurt your race day performance by overtraining during this period, or by going cold turkey, or by trying all sorts of newfangled techniques. I find that people always want to like foam roll for the first time in this 2 week window. And I'm like, if you haven't foam rolled before, it's not the time to pick up foam rolling. If you haven't done a stretching routine before, this is not the period to try that stretch routine that you haven't done. So really stick to what's worked for you week over week and just think about reducing volume and intensity.
Yeah. And I think to echo off of what you said, if you're doing a long run or you're training and you're feeling like you could go more, I mean, that's a good thing. That means your training has worked. You're ready. So if you go out and do maybe, 8 or 9 miles for a long run this weekend and you're like, wow, I could do 10 more, resist the urge to go further, but no, hey, my training over the past couple months has really worked and I'm ready. I'm ready to go on the 7th.
Absolutely, right? Like, it's not that you want to go I think we're so used to doing these really long runs that we go to full fatigue, right? We're maxed out, and that's the comfort. We become comfortable going to full fatigue. The point for this taper period is to not be approaching that. Save it for race day. You're so close. You like look at the abyss. Don't go into the abyss, right? Like stay away from that fatigue. Fatigue is the abyss right now. Just stay away from it. I love it. And Cathy, we have another question here, which is they say because we have HSS on, they want to ask this: is it okay to take a painkiller the night before the marathon?
I mean, meds really aren't my thing, but I'd be curious as to why you're feeling you need to take something. I think if you're feeling fine, why are you adding to the mix? Why are you adding, pain medication or any kind of medication if you don't need it or if you haven't used it? So I think if you're concerned about needing to take a pain medication, that may be something you need to chat with your doctor. I think I saw the question pop up, Tylenol or Advil. Again, I think not really my place to be prescribing medications on what you may or may not need. But if you're concerned that you're going to have pain, or if you're having pain now and feeling that you have to medicate, that may be something you do need to talk to, your doctor about, your primary care physician. But I wouldn't, I would probably caution against just taking something to take something. There should be a rationale, a medical reason, and that's probably something you do need to chat with your doctor about. And if you're having pain, again, like if you feel you need to medicate, then that I think is something you have to follow up with your doctor about. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, spot on, right? Like it goes under, it feels silly to say, but it goes under the nothing new on race day. Like, what is the reasoning behind it? What is, if you have a long-standing history and a relationship with your doctor and you work together on this and something you are in your plan, then it's personal, and that's the plan you need to execute. If it's a new thing, then I'm really wondering, as Cathy said, why is it here now? We have Anne who's asking, what do you consider a long run at this point? And I'd love to hear, Cathy, your take. My take is a long run is anything that sort of puts you slightly into the fatigue zone, right? So for some runners, a long run can be 18 miles. For other runners, a long run is 8 miles, right? It is that meaty, beefy run that it takes a little bit more effort and energy for you to accomplish. And so let's say your natural run, your normal run, something that doesn't take a lot of energy is a 5 miler. That would make something over 8 miles a long run for you. But it varies runner to runner, training cycle to training cycle, and year over year. So Cathy, what do you think about that?
I actually agree with you. I think there's a lot of variation based on what's your marathon history, what's your racing history. I think I can also lump in there. Have you done another fall marathon? Because I think there might be a lot of people out there that haven't, this is a unique year for that. So I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. I think in general, a long run this weekend may look, vary anywhere from maybe 7 to 10 miles. I know for me personally, I will probably go out and do about 7 or 8. That's probably going to be max for me fatigue level, knowing that, the marathon is the following week. So I think there is some variation. I'd probably also take a look at what did you do last weekend for the taper. It should be a little bit less this coming weekend than what you did last weekend as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If you find yourself an 18 miler the week before the marathon, talk to your coach, get some advice. We're really not recommending a very long run. A long run can be a swing, right? So a long run can be 7 or 8 and it can go up. So it should be literally tapering on down. All right. So let's do one more question. Let's get back into our show. This question is on race day. How many runners in particular in person will there be on November 7th? Because I want to run in a straight line, not past too many other runners because they'll get tired. I love this question. We're predicting around 30,000 in the race field. This is your year. If you're in this race, I am so excited for you to reduce touch points, to create more physical distancing, to keep people safe. We have all the amenities of a 50,000 person race for 30,000 people. So we have toilets for 50,000 people, and the course is nice and large for 50,000 people, but we only have 30,000 on it. And that's very intentional by the New York Roadrunners to keep people safe. And that's why we've done that this way. So the good news is that for a lot of the race course, you might be in periods, if you've run this race year over year, where it is a little bit lighter. You might also be in periods where everyone clumps up, just the way the crowds work. So it's kind of fun. How was London, Cathy? Was London a crowded race for you?
Um, yes and no. I don't actually know what the actual total ended up being, but there were definitely sections where we were a little clumped together. Roads were a little bit narrow through parts of London, so we did feel a little bit clumped, but I think they did a really good job spacing people out. There were, I think, 16 or 17 waves going off every couple of minutes, so they really did a nice job of giving us free reign of the street. But I think London will probably fall true to New York. There's going to be times where you've got a little bit more room. There's going to be times where you're a little bit closer together. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's hop into our second section. Let's put ourselves actually in race day. Yay! You've done the taper. You've gotten some maybe mixed sleep that Saturday night. It is Sunday in New York City. I'm just gonna say it's gorgeous weather. I'm just gonna declare it. I'm saying we're gonna have gorgeous weather. I haven't even looked at the weather forecast. And you are on Staten Island.
It looks okay so far. It looks okay. I've been looking.
All right. Also, Cathy, our meteorologist here. What should runners be thinking about? Any recommendations you have for what runners should be doing at Staten Island to stay warm? What should be happening when they're actually in Staten Island?
Yeah. So my first recommendation is get there early. Give yourself plenty of time to get there early. If you've run New York City before in the past, you know that it is a trek to get over to Staten Island. There's 30,000 other people trying to get there too. So get there early, go when you're supposed to go, and so that you give yourself plenty of time. Yes, there is going to be a little bit of waiting around, and that's natural. So bring some warm clothes, warm throwaway clothes, bring something to do, bring some food. I would say, anywhere between maybe 40-ish minutes before your wave goes off, get up and start moving. Some light jogging, a dynamic warm up, skipping, butt kicks, high knees, maybe anything you've done before as a warm up. If you haven't done some of those dynamic warm up moves before your long runs, don't try them on race day. Just get up, a little bit of jogging, light moving. Give yourself time to not only do a little bit of warm up moving, but to get to the bathroom before you go to corral. So I think getting there early, warm clothes that you can throw away, and giving yourself about that 40-minute window before your corral goes off for a little bit of warm up and moving and getting to the bathroom. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely right. Just getting yourself warm over the course of the 26.2 mile distance. You'll really warm up into the race. Even for the professional athletes, they do like a very, very light warm up, but they even warm up over the course of the distance, just like you will. But I do love that idea of the walking, the jogging, making sure you know where the bathrooms are, and just keeping it moving. Let's talk about the race itself. You're on the race course, and there's going to be a lot of physical sensation. You might have a runner's high where you feel phenomenal. You might have a lot of discomfort. You might even have pain. Cathy, how should runners approach feeling discomfort and pain during the marathon? And when should they know that it might be something more serious? Did Cathy freeze on us?
Yeah, so I think I agree with that. You're going to experience a lot of things throughout the race. Might have a little bit more. Am I back?
You're back. We got you. We're like
we're
slightly.
Back.
We're back.
I know. I'm like probably frozen in a really awkward position. Awesome. You're going to. I know. You're going to experience a lot of things throughout the race. Going to be some pain, going to be some soreness, going to feel the legs as you get a little bit further on. So I think in general, as the race goes on, legs are going to feel a little tired, a little heavy. The second half of the course, if you don't know, it is notoriously a little bit harder than the first half of the course. But I think if pain is, if you're starting to have discomfort, slow down, get off to the side, start walking. If pain is affecting how you're moving and now you're limping with walking or running, that's your cue to maybe stop at the medical tent. If you're feeling dizzy, lightheaded, short of breath, that's your cue to get to the medical tent. So I think those are more glaring things. To feel sore and fatigued and, feel like you're, hitting the notorious wall, that 18-20 mile mark, that's going to be normal. You're going to have that feeling you can't go on. But I think if pain is now altering how you're moving, that's kind of the big red flag, in my opinion, with pain.
Yeah. Absolutely right. And we have a lot of medical tents along the course for a variety of reasons, and they're there for runner safety. So do not hesitate to check out
Mhm,
any of the red medical tents. They are all over the course, and they're to keep you
mhm,
safe. So if you are concerned and you do get into that red zone yourself, and you're really feeling pain, you know they're there. They're New York City's finest. So actually go in and ask someone, and get checked out.
mhm.
So don't hesitate to access our medical services along the race course as well. All right. So let's say we have done the race. We've gone from Staten Island. We've run through the five boroughs. We are crossing the finish line in Central Park, um, and now we are in what we sometimes call the 27th mile, which is the walk-off zone. We as coaches, we're always like, keep walking, don't sit down. Folks really want to sit down, and we're like, no, this is not going to be good. It'll be harder to get up. What should runners be really thinking about in this 26th mile?
Mhm.
And what should they do to really aid their recovery?
Keep moving. Do not sit. Whatever you do. And I know, I think, like you said, a lot of people are going to want to sit, but you do want to keep walking. I'm not sure how, water and things are being given at the finish line. I'm assuming it's still a bag with everything like you usually get, but start to get some water, some Gatorade, some nutrition in you right after the race, and keep those legs moving. Obviously, if you are really hurting and a lot of pain and you're limping, get to the medical tent, but it's going to be to start gradually refueling, keeping those legs moving. That's really the most important thing, because if you do sit down, it's going to be really hard to get up. You're going to cramp. You're going to be sore. But starting to refuel, then wherever you're staying when you get home, starting to get some food in you as well. But definitely once you cross that finish line, I would say be moving and starting to get some of that fuel back in you right away.
And the great news is that runners do have access to a recovery bag, and it's like a hefty recovery bag. Like
Mhm,
I always think runners think it's going to be like a child's gift bag, like a party gift bag. It's like a really heavy recovery bag, not really heavy, but it's like a small sack, and it's got
mhm,
some awesome food in it right away. It's got some liquids, and you're gonna get this
mhm,
like awesome warm cape. Everyone gets the cool capes this year, and so you do get a lot of materials right
mhm,
away. So it is really just about that keep moving, which I think there's such a
mhm,
disconnect between what your brain is telling you, which is we need to stop now, and what your body
mhm,
actually needs, which you've really tapped into, Cathy, which is like it needs to just keep moving or you will freeze in place.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
one of the kindly volunteers will have to get you up off the curb, which happens from time to
yeah.
time. All right, well, let's hop into our questions and shout out section. So, runners, if you have any questions for Cathy, don't hesitate to drop them in. We'd love to hear from you. But let's get to our shout outs. Jeffrey says hello from Mickey Mouse Town in Orlando, Florida, which is Disney World. We've now determined. Hi, Jeffrey. Jess says, congrats, Cathy, on crushing the London Marathon. And Yun Shen says, hi, everyone. And so, hi. All right, here we go. Sarah asks, will we be able to get our medals engraved this year? The answer is yes, Monday and Tuesday at Marathon Pavilion. So there will be a chance for medal engraving on Monday and Tuesday. And then this is sort of a great question. This is Yasi says, we are Club Rise to Run, and they have over 30 plus runners running this year. Half of them are first time runners, first time marathoners. Starting at noon is too much of a wait time. So for some of them. So what is your recommendation? What can they do for those 3 to 4 hours? And so this question is, they're, in Staten Island, people are going to be in Staten Island for a long time.
Mhm,
What do you think how do you think they should approach that longer wait period?
mhm. So I have a little bit of a later start time this year than normal. I think with them, spacing out. So I think a lot of people are in this boat. In years past, what I've done, I've gone early just to get there. I bring my warm clothes. I actually bring an old heat shield. I actually lay out a kind of picnic area, my warm clothes. I've brought magazines to read. I've brought my breakfast. I kind of make a morning of it. And in years past, I actually have taken a nap. I've rested, but I've got, what I eat for my breakfast. I've got some things to do. And I literally find a patch of grass and lay down and relax. But I do make it a point, even with a later start, to still get there early because I don't want to be racing. But I think if you, kind of pack those things, I'm assuming they're still having like the Start Village bags where you can bring some stuff with you that you can toss, bring something to read, bring some food with you, something to lay on, and just hang out and relax. A lot of people are in this boat, but those would be some things that I've done in the past that I would recommend for this year.
I love it. Disposable entertainment and taking a nap are, the MO of runners everywhere. And it's what, when I was a professional runner, it's what I would do is I would get there very early and I would try and find a dark corner or build my own picnic space and try and close my eyes for a few minutes and get a little bit more rest, and absolutely have the food that I need, bring it with me on race day. To execute. So I'm not hungry starting the race. You really don't want to be hungry starting the race. So if you are at that noon time, really think about what would be easily digestible that you can make sure you're not having hunger cravings and about to run a 26.2 mile distance. All right, here we go. This is from Lily. I love this question. Will it be a good idea to start using massage guns before the race? What should we watch out in choosing one? So talk to me a little bit about, maybe for folks at home, what are massage guns? And what is your recommendation, Lily, about using one before a race?
Yeah, I'm assuming like maybe thinking like the Theragun is usually the popular one that a lot of people use. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. So I think I'm gonna, first say if you haven't done it before a long run, probably not a good idea to add anything new on race day, because you don't know how you're going to react. You don't know how you're going to feel. You don't know how it's going to affect your muscles or your performance. So I think first and foremost, I probably wouldn't add something new in if you haven't tried it before. Your massage gun, for maybe people who don't know or aren't familiar with the Theragun, is really a way of using like a handheld gun with different attachable devices for more of that deep tissue massage. So they are great devices rather. You might get a little bit more of a deep myofascial, soft tissue release than foam rolling. But I think I caution, as you mentioned, about foam rolling. If you haven't done this before a long run or haven't been using this, I probably wouldn't add it in before the race.
Yeah, it can be something that you can explore after your race, when you've got a recovery window, and definitely think about it after. Maybe not the thing to be doing right now. Nothing new in this period. You've done all this excellent training, and you don't want to add an unknown element, and that you don't know how your body is going to react. Also, just as we're talking about what you're doing in Staten Island, we just want to be clear, runners, there is no bag check on Staten Island. That is new this year and on purpose to reduce touch points. So some runners did have the option to check a bag in Central Park in the days leading up to the race. But so when we say bring things to Staten Island, we mean disposable things. We just want to be so clear on that. We mean food that you'll eat on Staten Island, clothing that you're going to throw in the Goodwill donation bins, and magazines that you are going to recycle or throw in the trash. So just to clarify, everything that you bring with you on Staten Island has to be disposed of on Staten Island or carried with you over your marathon distance. But there is no bag check this year for almost everyone. And so you really just need to know that what you're bringing on Staten Island is either going to be carried with you or disposed of. And you can, there's ways you can figure that out. And the donation Goodwill bins are really helpful because you can donate clothing, but still stay warm on race day. All right. Okay, we've got some shout outs. Julio says, hey, from Florida. Sue says, hey there, from the state where the Atlanta Brave champs are from. My 5th New York City marathon, running with my daughter, her first marathon. Good luck, Sue. I love that family multi-generational combo. And then we have a question from Lorena, who asked, how can I run this marathon? I can have the opportunity now to make it virtual. So folks can still sign up for the virtual race, and they can run it until November 7th, or you can look to next year. And so a marathon is a thing that does take a lot of time and preparation to do. And so runners sometimes will do multiple marathons in a year, but often they might be a 1-a-year marathon person. And so you can start looking now for next year's marathon and get really, really prepared. But we do have the virtual marathon open until November 7th. Cathy, that brings us to the end of our show today. What final words of wisdom would you give our runners in this 11-day period? What advice can you give to them as they're thinking about heading to that start line, on November 7th?
Yeah, trust your training. You've put in the legwork. I think from a personal standpoint, it's been a tough year training for everybody, and this might be, one of your first races back. But trust your training, trust your legs. You've earned to be here, and I think for a lot of people, this maybe was a race that was, postponed for you that you weren't able to run last year. It's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be a little bit anxious, but trust those legs underneath you. And above anything else, New York City is probably one of my favorite races. The crowds are amazing. They're going to carry you through to the finish line. I think from a course strategy perspective, Brooklyn is pretty flat. So, try not to go out in the first half because you've got those bridges at the second part. But, once you get into Manhattan, those crowds really throughout the whole race, they're going to carry you through to the finish line. And above anything, enjoy it. It's an amazing race. It's a huge accomplishment to not only run New York City, but finish. So whether it's your first or your 50th, enjoy the experience and take it in, and fingers crossed for good weather.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much, Cathy. Thank you to Hospital for Special Surgery for supporting this episode. And thanks for joining us, Cathy.
Yep. Thanks for having me. I always look forward to be here for Marathon Week.
Yeah, this is like holiday week in New York City for me. This is like the New York City holiday. I'm so excited.
It is
And
holiday.
If it is our holiday,
Mhm.
runners, if you're running, good luck. Trust your training, as Cathy said, and we're so excited for you. Have a good one, runners.